Hi, I'm Dr. Melissa Magnuson, and this is Lessons Across Species. This week, I had someone ask me if they should surrender their pet rat because of the Hantavirus headlines. And I paused before answering, not because the question was unreasonable. Honestly, fear has a way of making reasonable people reach for certainty as quick as possible. But in that moment, I could see something happening in real time. A frightening headline, unfamiliar medical language, and suddenly a beloved animal that was being viewed through the lens of danger instead of companionship. That pattern stayed with me all week because what I see across species in exam rooms, in public health conversations, and honestly, in people watching the news is that fear often spreads faster than understanding, and medicine works best in the opposite direction. The headlines this week centered around hantavirus connected to a cruise ship outbreak. Several people became critically ill and some died. Public health officials began tracing contact and monitoring exposures. And because it involved a disease associated with rodents, people immediately started asking questions about their pets. Can my pet rat carry this? Should I be worried? Is this another pandemic? As a veterinarian, I completely understand why those questions happen. Diseases that cross species boundaries feel uniquely unsettling because they remind us that humans are not separate from the natural world. We share environments, microbes, vulnerabilities, and risks with animals every single day. But what often disappears during moments like this is context. Hantavirus is not new. For most people, the actual risk remains very low. Human infection is typically associated with exposure to infected wild rodent urine, droppings, or saliva, especially in enclosed spaces where particles can become airborne. And that distinction matters. A domesticated pet rat living indoors has a very different risk profile than a wild rodent exposure in endemic regions. Public health guidance matters. Species differences matter, and environment matters. But fear tends to flatten all nuance into one emotional category: danger. And once people become frightened, they stop asking, what is the actual risk? And start asking, how do I eliminate uncertainty immediately? Medicine rarely works that way. What struck me most this week is that I see this exact same pattern constantly in veterinary medicine. A dog will cough once after they've been boarding, and owners immediately fear catastrophic respiratory disease before we've even examined the animal. A cat will hide for a day, and families spiral because of something they read online. A rabbit stops eating overnight, and someone delays care because the internet reassurance felt easier than comforting uncertainty. Meanwhile, some of the most common preventable risks receive far less attention simply because they're familiar, like rabies, leptospirosis, tick-borne disease, or salmonella exposure from reptiles or backyard poultry. These are part of everyday public health and veterinary conversations, but familiarity rarely creates headlines. Novelty does. And humans, like animals, are wired to react strongly to unfamiliar threats. One of the biggest shifts in my own practice has been realizing that education is often more therapeutic than reassurance alone. Simply telling someone, don't worry, usually doesn't help very much. What people actually need is context. They need to understand why something matters, how it spreads, what signs deserve attention, and what level of concern matches reality. Because understanding restores proportion. I spend a lot more time now discussing probabilities instead of absolutes. I spend more time helping people distinguish between serious and likely, because those are not interchangeable concepts. And I try to remind people that paying attention is different from panicking. What I wish more people understood is that living alongside animals will always involve some degree of shared vulnerability. That isn't a failure of nature, it's part of being connected to other living beings. The answer isn't to become afraid of animals, the answer is to understand them better. And honestly, the same could probably be said about humans too. The deeper pattern I keep seeing across species is this: whether it's a frightened client, a stressed animal, or an anxious public watching headlines unfold, the instinct is often the same: react first, understand later. But medicine works best in the opposite direction. If these kinds of cross species patterns interest you, subscribe on YouTube and read the full Lessons Across Species essay linked below. I explore the medical, behavioral, and emotional patterns that connect humans and animal health in ways we often miss until something forces us to pay attention.